what we learned from you in terms of building community, we want to take that further. We want to take that all the way up to a scale where we're not just a publisher, but we're moving into selling to distributors like Netflix.
We've managed to find a team of very talented Filipinos across the board. In each and every one of these roles, we always try to find someone who's within the community, who's already trying to do something like this, so that we can bring them on and say, hey, this is an opportunity that you might want to try.
Name one Filipino that you could think of. I would love for any of them to say one down as top of mind.
On the subject of representation, I know that one of the things that I have a lot of respect for is the fact that you all understand the power of visibility, not just on the camera, but in the writer's room, in the people filming your videos, and even the brands and influencers that you partner with. So you aren't just talking the talk. I respect the fact that you're all walking this walk, and the values that you talk about on camera are the values deeply rooted within the actual business. So I want to know, what is the long-term vision of One Down? What does the future of One Down look like, both in terms of the kinds of projects you want to work with and the type of company that you'd want to become?
Yeah, I think one of the most empowering things is not only do we as individuals have our own kind of meaning or intention behind why representation is important to us, but also collectively we share this vision. When we talk about representation specifically in like media and entertainment, Graz kind of mentioned it, there's so many different facets of what representation looks like. It's not just Filipinos being on the screen. It also includes people who are behind the screen, who are the filmmakers. But also, importantly, it also includes, the people back home and Filipinos as a population being seen as this strong purchasing power, or being seen as this audience that advertisers or studios want to target because they have some form of consumer power. And, going into media, because I work as a full-time producer on the publisher side, Filipinos aren't usually targeted. We're usually kind of categorized with Asians, and that's kind of the way that we'll hit them. And so one of the biggest challenges in representation and visibility is creating a platform where Filipinos are the central voice. They're kind of the pushers of the stories, and being able to show a case study or evidence or data that we have 1 million views. We're able to garner lots of views, lots of eyeballs, lots of just sound as the Filipino people, because that's the other side of representation that I don't think we often talk about. And so one of the biggest goals of One Down is creating this community that is visible towards, the larger studios, the larger advertisers, so that more of this content, more of this work that caters towards Filipinos are able to be made. So, we're seeing this slowly as we see Yellow Rose, being bought and distributed by Sony. We're seeing it as Lingua Franca, which is, another Filipino movie that was bought by a studio Array. And how do we continue to build this audience so that we are seen as this large purchasing power that is represented, and so that others who are not Filipino want to tell or showcase these stories too. So that really is kind of the long-term vision. And right now where we're at as a company, we're kind of just building the audience. We're slowly testing different formats, different types of content, and we're starting to engage. And I think that was one of the root things that we really learned from you. I remember 1 year ago, I've been a fan of LLAG, and I've always seen your content and the way you've unapologetically kind of represented your own perspective and your perspective as a Filipino American. And, we wanted to create a space that was very similar to that, where we can engage in these conversations that we don't see very often. And so, a lot of it that what we learned from you in terms of building community, we want to take that further. We want to take that all the way up to a scale where we're not just a publisher, but, we're moving into selling to distributors like Netflix. You're seeing some of our content or, some of our films in movie theaters. So really the end goal is to bring the Filipino narrative into the mainstream. So it's not just ethnic content, but it's a story that's worth being told.
Oh man, I mean, it's like it. I'm glad that you had brought up that point about so much of media representation oftentimes starts with the people who have access and the people who have the power to produce these films and budget these films. They have to sort of see the proof that this audience exists. And it's unfortunate that, you should be able to intuitively tell people like, okay, well, there's 3 million Filipinos, there's a market for this. But they have to be able to see that in terms of like, are you watching this piece of content? And so you're doing the type of work that really is important in terms of igniting that spark and letting people know that this exists, because once you start to roll that ball, you start to open up all these other opportunities. And so I can totally see, and I know that a couple of people have commented on one of your posts about, hey, I can't wait to see One Down do, this series like on Netflix. So I already know that, if people are thinking about it, then you're on the right track. Christine, how about you?
So Leo's talking about, representation in terms of securing that audience, right? Showing that we are a viable purchasing power, that the audience does exist. And I think that while we're building that audience, one of the other important things is building up the team. When we were on our last project, which was the virtual gala for Search to Involve Filipino Americans, which is the longest standing and largest Filipino American nonprofit in Los Angeles, they were celebrating their annual gala. And while we were on set, one of the executive producers was attending the shoot, and he was looking around and he goes, "Wait, is everyone here Filipino?" And Leo was like, "Yeah, actually, yeah, most of us are." So you have everyone on our team, save for maybe 3 or 4 people, but the DP, so the director of photography, the sound mixer, the lighting, everyone that's involved in the process throughout. We've managed to find a team of very talented Filipinos across the board, and each and every one of these roles, we always try to find someone who's within the community who's already trying to do something like this, so that we can bring them on and say, hey, this is an opportunity that you might want to try, and be able to make those connections and build that team. I think that that's a big part of the representation process too, is while we're building that audience, making sure that we're matching our bandwidth behind the scenes to measure up to what that audience is expecting. Another important thing that I realized, and Leo points this out in one of our BTT episodes, is having that director, having those writers, those people that are creating the content specifically, letting them be the people that drive the narrative. And oftentimes those are the people that are going to have that should have the most insight into the content that they're writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about how in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, there's that moment where the executive producer stops production so that they can fix the dinaguan in the scene so that it doesn't look like carnitas, right? Just little things like that. Being able to have those people that are making those crucial decisions be culturally competent in that decision-making process. For me, before I'm in the job that I am in now, I was a producer for a studio that worked on Netflix dubbing. So like series and shows and movies that we were dubbing from another language into English for, worldwide consumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of my gripes, and I can say this now because I don't work there anymore, but part of the problem that I saw was that we were casting largely, we had casts of largely white actors that were supposed to voice these essentially people of color, because these are all titles from other countries across the seas, right?
Mm-hmm.
These white people were playing these roles, right? And expected to match the face on screen, because what they're trying to do with dubbing nowadays is to create an experience where you feel like you're watching a first run, where the lip sync is so tightly met that you don't know that it's a dub when you first watch it. But for me, what was pulling me out the most was a subtle difference in the way that people speak, right? If you're expecting to hear a particular voice coming out of an Asian face, you shouldn't hear a white male voice coming out of an Asian face, in my opinion. That's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of my that was my gripes with the process. So whenever I could, part of producing those shows was being able to cast certain people in certain roles. And so whenever I could, I would pull Filipinos into that process, because I knew that, if I bring a person of color in here, they're more than likely going to catch on really quickly and be able to deliver a better performance than what someone else who's not culturally informed might be able to produce. So definitely the behind the scenes aspect plays a large role in being able to cater to that audience and sustain our productions and meet their expectations.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing. You oftentimes hear cases where movies will have maybe POC characters, but they'll have white voice actors, or they'll have white people in the writer's room. And what a lot of those people fail to understand is, having a black writer write a black character, or having a Filipino person who is part of that creation process writing about Filipino content. It's so important because, like you said, you do get that nuance, and whether it is the nuance within an accent, whether it is the cultural nuance of making sure that the food looks good on video, all these things contribute to making things authentic and making things real. And it's just unfortunate that we've really had to almost coach the media industry that this is something that they need to watch out for. And it isn't just something where, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't matter.
I think on my end, Leo and Christine pretty much answered everything. So I think for future, like I would love it when if you just ask any Filipino people who are Asian about like Filipino media, like name one Filipino media that you could think of. I would love for any of them to say one down as top of mind. I think that'd be the goal. Is like one day we want to be that platform, that number one platform that people are always going to talk about or know of. And if there's anything about if there's a Filipino who's asking about their identity, asking about specific topics in the Filipino community, they can come to us for guidance or questions. I think that's something that essentially we want to be, we want to be that hub for that type of content. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it in mind, because Christine and Leo answered it. We want to make sure that we build up our team, want to make sure that we build up the content and the business behind it, and also building the audience, so that way we're really appealing to like the advertisers. So
no, that's definitely important, because I know that whenever you're talking about different communities and their publications, and oh, hey, where do I go to find news on Muslim Americans, or where do I go for news on Vietnamese Americans? Because a lot of times we think that news about Asian Americans is just this broad general overlay, or content about Asian Americans is just this broad category, but to have something very specific is really important.